Welcome back to my channel. My name is Areli. I am a medical doctor, pathologist, neuropathologist, and I also have a plant-based nutrition certification by the University of Winchester. Here I am with Garth Jones. We had a previous interview. If you haven't watched it before, watch it because that's going to give you a nice background about where he's coming from. We discussed about his trajectory as a raw vegan, and now we're going to discuss his experiences with experimenting with different protein supplementation in addition to his raw vegan diet. So welcome, Garth, and it's been great having you before, and now thank you for accepting this invite.
Thanks, Arely. Really good to be here again. Really good to be speaking to you. You're looking well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's start with the question. So can you tell me a little bit about your fitness, your experience as a CrossFitter, as a raw vegan, and how you started seeing changes with protein supplementation? What happened in this, because we discussed this before, so I know what happened, but for you, this 6 months period without protein and then reintroducing the supplementation. So yeah, take us through it.
Okay. I mean, feel free to jump in and
sure,
stop me at any point, but I'll just, I think the most interesting discussion is around what happened in the last year.
Okay.
I mean, I think like a lot of people who are raw vegan, I find it very good for optimum health, and I always have. I mean, ever since I started looking at improving health with diet, I mean, I tried all sorts of different ways of changing because the accepted normal way of living, which includes the food that people regularly eat, wasn't working for me. I actually established that quite early on, I think. It was around about the age of 18, 19, 20, maybe. I kind of recognized that a lot of the usual way of doing things actually result in quite a painful, unworkable life. But then there's nobody comes up to you and says, well, here's the guidebook to make it all better. I mean, I used to be someone that would have Coca-Cola, a bottle of Coca-Cola to pick myself up, or I used to be someone that would eat something sugary because I felt a bit low. Or that we've all, a lot of us have been there. Or I was the person who would go and buy some meat or something if I felt that I wanted to feel stronger. So I started from quite a conventional place, not unlike many people. I think that's where we all start from. I noticed by my early 20s that it really wasn't working. And it wasn't for want of willpower. I had plenty of willpower. I wanted to run up the hill and run faster up the hill. I wanted to pick more weights up. I wanted to swim faster. I wanted to have a greater experience of life. But it's a bit like the old, is it the myth of Sisyphus with the guy that's pushing the rock up the hill? It felt like that, and every time I pushed the rock up, it just slid back down again. So life literally was turning into an uphill struggle. It seemed to me, well, this isn't working. Well, okay, what do I do then? And I just started casting around and, maybe looking into some more, shall we say, unorthodox, unconventional areas. That led me to veganism. That led me to keto.
Can I know at what time, how old you were or how long?
So I probably started playing around with veganism probably 25, 26, 27, something like that. And yeah, I started doing the whole thing of taking meat out of the equation. I did notice an improvement in health.
Yeah.
Then I knew, and I kind of knew it for a while anyway, that I knew I had a real big problem with sugar. I knew I had a compulsive relationship with sugary sweet things, and I couldn't resist it. And so I started reckoning with that in my late 20s as well. So I was actually reckoning with several things at the same time. But again, if you're compromising yourself with all of this kind of toxic stuff in your spare time compulsively because you can't stop, you don't actually feel good at all. And you don't actually even have the energy in you. So you're being expected to be on point and perform and be happy and exude all of this energy. And you feel the absolute opposite. So then you end up being false then. You end up pretending. And then that becomes like a psychological thing because you're not actually being true to how you feel. And in short, I think then you're living in hell, basically. So for me, the question quite early on is, how do I get out of this hellhole which I found myself in? Which everything, it seems to me that most of the ways, shall we say, the established norms will perfectly put you into that hellhole. No question. If you go by most of the established norms, whether established by authorities or whether established by most peer groups, you will quickly find yourself in a hellhole. You'll find yourself compromised. You'll find yourself at war with yourself almost, and not able to kind of be an authentic self in relation to the world. And I don't know if I trace all of that back to food, but for my part, if I found that if I started eating more raw food, definitely vegan food to begin with, but ultimately raw food, I truly felt good.
Yeah. How did you come about realizing that raw in particular was the thing that made it for you?
Well, I've been nudged in that direction a few times, if you like, by some experiences, put it
Right.
that way. So there have been times when I kind of recognized that for example, when I was very, very ill, each time when I was very, very ill, it seemed to be the case that my body preferred on exiting the illness or successfully exiting the illness, the body seemed to prefer raw food at that stage. When I was very, very ill, I couldn't really eat very much but raw food. And actually, to kind of cut to the chase. So I'd already found out. I mean, for example, when a lot of people are very, very ill, even as a kind of standard, what do they tend to give people when they're just coming out of the illness? I mean, my parents always gave me fruit, they to begin with. Just
Something
kind of
mild. Yeah.
yeah. And I noted that I tended to feel like fruit, and that fruit tended to help, and raw food tended to help me more and help me feel better. But the real revelation, and it's a story that I tell whenever I'm asked this question, really, I think I was 27 maybe, but I still used to get very ill each year, and it was always a very bad respiratory disease. I'd always get a chest infection, and I struggled. I used to get it every year. It was very difficult to work, to study, to do anything really. But I tried to persist. But at the time, my girlfriend said to me she'd been reading this book, which was The pH Miracle. It was called. That was the name of the book. That was the actual name of the book, The pH Miracle. The thesis of the book is that the body should be pH neutral, and most people's bodies are acidic, and that's how viruses and various pathogens can thrive in the body, was the kind of basic theory in the book. And I read through it, and of course quickly you arrive at the question, well, okay, how do you balance your pH then? If I'm acidic, how do I balance the pH? And the book basically said, well, you need to eat nothing but raw greens for a few weeks, and then after that you gradually introduce these pH neutral foods, mostly raw, and then eventually you can introduce some cooked foods, but again pH neutral. It was almost like a detox phase, I think, that this book was kind of recommending, which was basically raw greens. It was basically saying you need to eat these kilograms of greens.
Did you do it, and did it work?
Yeah, because I was so fed up. I was so ill, and it was another year of being ill. Well, and in the winter season with this respiratory disease, and I felt so dead. I thought, well, I've got nothing to lose. Let me give it a try. So almost from anger and frustration, really, at how I was feeling, missing out on life, if you like, I thought, right, I took myself down to the supermarket and feeling awful, and I got loads of greens, and I went back to the apartment. And so I did it for the whole day. And by about 5, 6 o'clock in the evening, from one day of having raw greens, just one day, nothing but raw greens, at 5, 6 o'clock in the evening, my symptoms were almost completely gone. All the respiratory, like the chest infection was pretty much gone. My nose was clear. The inflammation was kind of gone. Everything had cleared up. I could hear properly. That shocked me. But then I sort of did the check on my own well-being. My energy was back. That really blew me away, because my energy I could feel my energy, and I kind of jumped up, and I was like, this is incredible.
Yeah.
This is kind of cured me, you know what I mean?
So that was
that really hit me,
Yeah. I mean, I just want to interrupt a little bit because You mentioned the pH miracle. Some people have debunked the pH theory. That's not to minimize, the findings of these books. And I just want to bring this into the conversation. Like, it seems like there has been so many books throughout the years, especially in the 1800s, early 1900s, where from one book or another, people come to this realization that if you eliminate the things that are making you sick and you introduce things that are actually alive, full of fiber, full of antioxidants and vitamin C and all of that, eventually you're gonna get better. And I feel like everybody has different realizations with different books, with different authors from all these times, periods and times that people arrive with to the same conclusion, like Arnold Ehret and all this detoxification, pH theories. And at the end of the day, it's basically eliminating what's causing us, making us sick, and then having this realization, like living foods actually give you energy, right? So that was probably, with your girlfriend that introduced you to raw foods, or the book and all that. You basically had this realization that probably changed your trajectory, I would say. Is that?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, once you've experienced something like that, you can't ignore it.
Yeah. So I mean, I suppose that greens are kind of like, it seems like you detox. You did like a remedy, right? You approached taking the greens as a remedy. But if people ask us, like, I mean, greens are like revolting. Like we are not, like animals, like jumping on a bunch of grass. No. But what happened after that? Did you introduce fruit, or how was your raw vegan diet afterwards?
Yeah. So, I mean, just to sort of pursue your point about I was almost self-medicating with raw food, with greens. Of course, I was in a still very unconscious state at that stage. So I didn't really know what I was doing. But when you hit upon something like that, it you think, wow. And the other thing I think which made me think, wow, was the complete opposite of what you're told.
Contrast.
Because like the complete opposite. If you get a really bad cold or something, drink honey and lemon, or have this paracetamol or something like that. And it was that realization and that way of doing things. The fact that it worked was shocking, but this bit might make you laugh a bit, because then I thought, okay, so greens are like the food then. Like, this is what I need to do, So I went and brought more greens. I thought, well, I feel brilliant. I've got my energy, I feel amazing. And I carried on eating greens and drinking water, because I thought, well, this works. Fantastic. And it felt really good. First day, I felt really good. Second day, I felt really good, which was good because the next day I had to go back to work. But that was day 2. And I almost felt like I had hidden knowledge, as well. So there was almost this kind of esoteric, spiritual sort of feeling coming in, that I might be privy to some
light.
Yeah, I might be privy to some knowledge. I might be on like a higher spiritual plane or something. It certainly felt like that. And then day 3, my body started physically shaking. It felt like inside I was like shaking, and I was almost salivating, because my body was like, I need food. Yeah, I was like literally pretty much shaking. My body was like, I need food. And then I thought to myself, well, what now? Because I'm doing these greens which work, but you're telling me that you want, and I felt weak. I felt like I really needed food. And so I thought, well, okay, I'll give you some food then. So I did, and I went and got some cooked vegan food, something like rice or something like that, or maybe potato, something like this. And when I ate that, some of my symptoms started coming back, so, and then I kind of entered this trade-off phase in my life where I'd eat loads of raw food, lots of greens, lots of fruit. And then I almost like a kind of 9 till 4 thing, I'd have raw for the whole day. And then in the evening, when it didn't matter so much, I'd have some cooked. And then if some of my symptoms or fatigue returned, it didn't matter because I'm not out in the world, kind of thing. Yeah. So for quite a number of years, I did a trade-off between vegan and raw vegan for quite a number of years after that.
So people are going to come to you, like, especially people who are very enthusiastic about only fruit consumption. They're going to say, oh, you did it wrong. you did it wrong. You shouldn't have had this and
Okay.
have
Yeah.
only
Yeah.
fruit. And you know,
Yeah.
redirecting the conversation to the protein and muscle gain.
Yeah.
Have you tried, you know, in your years of raw veganism and, you know, trying to build up the physique that you currently have you done it only on fruit? And what was your experience? And when did you feel that you needed to introduce protein
Well,
and go from there?
so that question's really interesting because I was going to interrupt you and say, before we go to the protein, can we go to the fruit first? But actually, that's what you're asking me, isn't it? Because that's what I did do. I mean, I did this trade-off thing of kind of, and the interesting thing at that stage in my life, I wasn't actually really interested in building muscle and strength and challenges and gains. I just wanted to stay fit.
Yeah.
So I had route. I used to stay fit. You know, I used to run. I used to run a lot, and I used to swim a lot.
Yeah.
Swimming and running were the main exercise that I did. I wasn't doing CrossFit at that stage, and I wasn't doing weight training at that stage. I didn't hardly pick up weights at that stage. I think I had a couple of small dumbbells that I used to use.
You were like
So
in your 30s now, or
yeah, well, yeah, late 20s, early 30s.
okay.
And I had this kind of established routine, which was mainly swimming, running. I used to swim a lot, run a lot. And I had a couple of small dumbbells that I'd pick up every now and again, but weight training, I wasn't into weights. And I used to do press ups and sit ups, and it was mainly body weight exercises that I used to do. But because I'd experienced that level of energy for those few days from eating greens, that was always something that was in my head. You know, I was like, I because basically I kept having this trade-off between having energy, not having energy, having energy, not having energy. And then of course I get a bit ill. Then what I do then is I go for 2 3 days just on raw to feel well. And there was always this trade-off, and I couldn't leave the raw alone because it seems there was something really there. And I liked that energy and I liked not being ill. But there was this whole thing where my body was like, yeah, but I want food, Garth. You know, I was like, oh, I want to feel well and I want this energy. And my body was like, yeah, but I want food. So there's this kind of trade-off kind of thing going on in me. But I got to a point where I started watching a lot of raw vegan influencers at the time, which would have been about 15 years ago.
Yes.
So I started watching a lot of raw vegan influencers, and they were very kind of zealous and very kind of young. And, you know, look at us, you know, we're living a great lifestyle and we've got lots of energy and we found the secret kind of thing. And I was really taken with a lot of it, actually. And most of the influencers at that time were very high fruits, like fruit is the answer. And also, and by the way, fruit's delicious. So,
Yeah.
you know, you get everything. You get all the food that you need. You get all of your health. You get all of the calories that you need. You get everything. Like fruit is the answer, kind of thing. And plus, it's delicious. So what's there to worry about? And I thought, right, okay, let me try and do that. And so I did, and I took it very seriously. And luckily, because I had a reasonable job, because it's not at that point in time, because it's not cheap to
Oh.
eat nothing but fruit. It's very expensive, especially in London. I was probably spending between 30 and 40 pounds, which I think is roughly the same in dollars. I think it's $30 to $40 a day
Oh, wow.
on fruit, because I was getting through a good few kilos of fruit a day because that's what I was eating. And I was also trying to exercise and work in London in a stressful job at the same time.
So
And
keeping up with the stresses of your full-time job,
yeah,
with transportation, waking up early, getting ready, and
transportation,
then on top
waking up
of that,
early.
exercising.
Yeah.
How tall are you, if you don't mind me asking?
I am 5'9", I think.
Almost
Five
6.
foot nine, 5'10", 5'9", 5'10", about this height. Yeah.
And probably you will be eating like 3,000 or 4,000 calories on fruit.
Yeah, basically. I was literally going everywhere with basically pretty much my whole bag was full of fruit,
Mhm.
you know, because I was pretty much constantly eating fruit for the whole day because I did not want to feel insatiated, because then I can't concentrate on my work. And my work is very brain heavy as well. I have to be able to concentrate. So I was eating loads of fruit, paying lots of money for it. And what happened with me, this is going to shock some viewers, but I'm going to say it anyway. What happened with me is I would manage to stick to it for 6 months, and then I would crash. I mean, completely crash, because the craving for protein was so strong that I actually started eating meat again.
Oh,
So I completely crashed. I completely fell off the proverbial wagon. I went from being vegan to raw vegan. And when I tried to be raw vegan for 6 months, by the end of it, you know that shaking feeling which I was speaking about when I just did the 3 days with that I got that. And because I was coming into London, I almost always crashed when I walked past the halal chicken shops in London. Because when I walked past it, my body would literally started shaking and I'd start salivating because I was working around Paddington. There's a load of halal shops around there
yeah.
because there's this kind of Middle Eastern community around there. And I would literally start shaking with weakness and hunger, like a really raw, almost primitive hunger of needing to be satiated. And I would just say to myself, well, this is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. I mean, okay, well, if you really need this, fine, I'll go and get it. Do you know what I mean? And I'd go and get the chicken. But then, and I'd wind up having chicken for, I don't know, I'd start eating meat for like a week or something. Then after a week to 2 weeks of being high raw with some chicken legs, um, so I was basically having green leaves, loads of fruit, and some chicken legs now because my body was saying that it needed it. But then after a few weeks, the chicken legs would start making me ill. So I'd go through this, and then I'd go back to high raw again for another 6 months. So I kept going around this cycle. Um, One thing which is worth saying is that I started having a trainer around that time. And my trainer noticed when I kept doing raw, it was difficult for him because he was trying to progress me and build me up. But when I kept doing fruit, I would struggle with my workouts. Sorry, folks, but to those people that are listening, but I would. The thing is, he was trying to get me into CrossFit, which is very high intensity, very anaerobic and aerobic. It's both. It's like weights, gymnastics, athletics. It's kind of all of it. Hence CrossFit. But it's very intense, and it's like an hour of very intense training. And I would just when I was doing all fruit, it's like a HIIT workout as well. If people know the HIIT workouts. And what would happen is, first 5-10 minutes I was fine, but after the first and actually quite intense for the first 5-10 minutes. But after the first 5-10 minutes, I just die. I was like a battery which had the lead pulled. So I carry on training, but in slow motion. Basically, I'd carry on doing the workout, but I just wouldn't have anything in me. And then when I finished, I had to eat loads of fruit. So that was kind of the experience that I just threw that in because at that time, when I was kind of going between completely raw and then breaking it with chicken. And the thing is, as well, is the other thing I wanted to say, when I did have the chicken, I had a lot more power in the gym. That's just being straight up. That's just what happened. And he would notice that. Of course, my trainer would notice that because I come into the gym with all this power all of a sudden. And my trainer would be like, yes, your numbers are great. You're improving. And of course, your trainer likes his client because
Yeah.
say his client because he's a male trainer, but he liked his client to be improving, of course. So I think a few interesting notes there, because for me to sit here and say, oh, yeah, well, I've been raw vegan successfully since I was born, no, I've had also, this is just to say some of the problems. So we've got to the point where I'm trying to have fruit and stick to fruit. It's not working. And then there's a transition point, which I can talk about a bit more in a minute. There's a transition point just after that.
So yeah, I wanted to interrupt you a little bit before you talk about the transition, because some people who are very enthusiastic about fruit only or mostly fruit or things like that, they're gonna say, well, we're not supposed to be bulky. We're not designed to be that way. We are supposed to be athletic, thin, and
Yeah.
I mean, we're not. I think that the point here is not to argue or to say that what you're doing should be the rule for everyone. You have a particular
Yeah.
fitness goal,
Yeah.
and I feel like if you are cardio-based athlete, definitely fruit only or mostly fruit, high carb, don't worry about
Well,
protein.
I would cross swords with you there even.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, of
I would.
course.
I mean, just speaking from my experience, I think as I will elaborate as the recording proceeds, I actually think that if you're serious about being fit, you need more than fruit.
Oh no, yeah, of course, of
That's
course.
my view. That's my view.
Of course, me too, right now.
Yeah,
But before I didn't make that connection because
yeah,
we are narrating our experiences and why we're coming up with
yeah, yeah,
this idea based on our experiences. And it's not only our
yeah,
experiences, many other people experiences, and based on the studies that are current, not disregarding what we learn from natural highness.
yeah,
And we know that raw food is amazing.
yeah.
However, when you
Very
restrict,
amazing.
when you
Fruit is amazing. Fruit's really
yeah,
important. It is
yeah,
important.
I eat
It's
lots
very
of fruit.
important.
But when you
But
restrict your diet and you just ignore the other
yeah,
macronutrient, which that's the thing that you were craving. Probably, yes, you were
yeah,
craving chicken because it was familiar to you, the smell and everything.
yeah.
But your body's wise. You're putting me to this situation that is, higher constraint to your body, like these heavy trainings. CrossFit is not mild,
No,
so
no, no, no. It's
your
the
body,
opposite.
give me something more.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so yeah, let's talk about your transition and
Yeah. Yeah, the next point is what I would call a more successful transition. I think it's important to qualify it with an adjective because my whole history of trying to be a successful raw vegan has been a very lumpy, bumpy road,
yes,
all the way along. It's never been perfect, but it's definitely been better at each step. So let's talk about what I would say was the first more successful step. So there was a point in time where I did my usual reversion to meat. I'd been kind of going through a few seasons of trying to be raw, going back to meat, then trying to be raw again. And on this one particular occasion, I'd gone back to eating chicken. That seemed to be what I would go back to. And then my body said to me one week, I don't want this chicken. It literally said to me, I don't want this anymore. This is making, I'm not feeling good. And it was weird because in the gym, I was really strong.
yeah,
My muscles were growing, but I felt really ill. And my body was actually saying to me, I don't want this chicken. Not in the English language, but feeling at the level of feeling. It was
yeah,
really saying to me, stop giving me this chicken. And it got to the weekend, and for some reason, generally, if anything was going to really happen, it always seems to happen at the weekends, which is probably just as well because I don't really want it happening during the week. And on the Saturday, my body was saying, stop giving me chicken. Like, this is making me ill. And the Sunday morning, I woke up and I sort of said to myself, I'm going to give you one chicken breast. And I was eating organic chicken breast at that time. And I just said to myself, I'm going to give you one chicken breast. And my body was like, don't give me the chicken. I don't want it. But I just gave chicken to it anyway. And then I spent pretty much the rest of the day curled up in bed in the fetal position in incredible pain. I was in so much pain that I almost felt like phoning the ambulance. And that was after having that chicken breast. So goodness knows I couldn't tell you medically what happened there, but my body was warning me, like, don't give me any more chicken breast. I don't want it. And so I spent pretty much the whole of Sunday in the fetal position in bed in staggering pain. And thankfully, towards the late afternoon, after being in excruciating pain, literally, I sort of came out of that dark place, if you like.
mm,
And I just said to myself, this is crazy. I was just like, this is crazy. I'm going from one extreme to the other, and I just can't get the health. And then I said, right, I said to myself, right, I need to sort this out. And then I started to kind of logicalize everything and think everything through. Right, I can't have chicken because it's making me crazy, crazy ill. But then I can't seem to stick to just fruit because that's not working because then I keep going back to meat. But I can't keep doing this. Like neither of these ways are working. And then I thought, right, the chicken's the protein. Clearly, the chicken is the protein. So I must need that protein that the chicken's given me. Chicken is basically almost protein, isn't it? As far as I know, it's mainly protein. So I said to myself, right, it's got to be the protein. So then I went online, and in the one case, I reflected on my past experiences with protein. And by that stage, I tried hemp. I hated it. Didn't like hemp proteins at all. Disgusting. I tried pea and rice protein. I got on quite well with that, actually. I found that. So I dabbled in different protein sources, and then I kind of stopped for whatever reason. I couldn't remember why. But the pea and rice protein I seemed to get on okay with. But then I went online and I started doing my research about what the best kind of protein was. And it seemed, from what I could tell, that for vegans, the most comprehensive source, or one of the most comprehensive sources of the whole range of amino acids, is actually pea and rice. Because I think rice, is a bit short in, I think it's leucine. I think it's that one, and the P is quite high in leucine. So the mixture of the two gives you a really good amino acid profile. So I thought, well, okay, let me see if I can find a raw vegan rice and protein, because I thought if I can find a raw one, so much the better.
Sure.
And I found one. And in fact, I kind of knew about it anyway. And I think I tried it at one stage and I ordered it. Quite expensive. I won't say what the brand was. Have more to say on this later on. And so I started basically, instead of having chicken, I started supplementing with this pea and rice protein. And we're in my early 30s now. I think early to mid 30s now. And basically that, and this is a really important point, that meant that I never went back to meat again. That's a really important point. When I introduced that in a very rigorous, almost programmatic way, what's the word that I'm looking for? Like a regime, like a routine. When I applied, right, I will have 50 to 100 grams of pea and rice protein every day, almost in a prescribed way. I actually sort of said, right, I'm going to do this from now on. And it was a game changer. It was a game. I mean, it was a real game changer. It changed my workout in the gym. It meant that I started having gains and stopped struggling with the CrossFit. I didn't need meat ever again after that point. And some people, I've had so many people in the past say to me, oh, it's all in your head. It's all in your head. It's all in your mind. And on different subjects, but this is one of them, well, it's all in your head. And it's like, no, I can assure you that it wasn't all in my head. It wasn't my willpower determining the outcome, the opposite. All I wanted was to make things work. Doubtless, if I could have got away with having chicken breasts a couple of days each month, who knows, maybe I would have carried on with that, if I didn't experience that pain. So you're not talking to a perfect being here who's working according to these high ideals. The opposite. You're talking to someone who was struggling and very often going through excruciating pain, who things were not working, who kind of almost, I don't know, evolved through these very strange circumstances and very painful experience to something that worked better. So that, I would say, by my mid-30s, I had established this way of eating where basically primarily fruit, so very high fruit, very high greens, and protein powder. And I kind of settled on that at that point.
So how long that phase lasted? Like you said, this regimented 50 to 100 grams as a supplement, basically.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I just kept doing it really, and I never kind of lapsed from that. And I mean, I think when I started to know you, was that maybe 4 years ago now? It could be online. Yeah.
Yeah.
3, 4, I think. 4.
Almost four. Yeah.
Almost 4. Yeah. So I would have been early 40s, and I started doing the kind of prescribed, almost regimented protein supplementation from my mid 30s, I would say. So by the time I met you, I'd been doing it consistently for about 5 years.
5 years.
And so I called myself, I think when I first knew you, I called myself a consistently high raw person for 5 years at that point.
Okay.
I could say that, but high raw, because I always thought, I didn't think that the protein powder was really raw, even though it said it was raw. So if anyone asked me, are you raw? I would say, no, I'm high raw. I kind of am, but actually a more accurate description of me would have been high raw at that point. Yeah. But the other thing was I had also been dabbling in, I was trying raw chocolate, and that didn't really work, so I stopped that. Then I was trying raw cakes, then I was trying raw cheese. None of those things ever really worked, not long term. I kind of got into sprouts a little bit, and then I stopped, not sprouting myself, but just buying them. I got into raw sandwiches, which actually would give me a very painful stomach, not infrequently. They tasted really nice.
The bread, you mean? Raw bread?
I don't know if it was the bread or what it was. I mean, the bread was made from sprouted foods. The bread was made from sprouted foods. And then I think there was a lot of garlic and onion, and there was a raw chutney pickle. It was like a raw chutney pickle to make it taste really nice. And also they used to put a lot of chickpeas, sprouted chickpeas, for these kind of croutons.
Okay.
So, I used to really like the taste, and that was, to be honest, that was the reason I was having it, because I hadn't, by that point, I hadn't kind of broken away from some of my addictions completely still. I still wanted the kind of every now and again, I really wanted the emotional fix. Really, that's what it was. When I saw that raw cheese was possible, I was like, wow. The Planet Organic in London, they had a whole delicatessen section. And in the delicatessen section, they had raw cheese. And then in the dessert section, they had raw cheesecakes and raw cakes. And I thought, wow, I can be a raw person, have my health, and at the same time have these kind of luxury items, which I always enjoyed before.
Yeah,
But,
so probably high in fat because it's like cashew and all of that.
well, when I tried eating those things, I would almost invariably, my health would not crash, but it would get worse
Yeah.
noticeably. And I could feel that I didn't feel as good. So gradually, I kind of shifted those things out. And then gradually, I started finding out about truly sprouted foods. And I started sprouting myself and eating more sprouted foods. That was another big game changer, by the way, when I found out about sprouted foods, because my gains and my performance in the gym improved again. And I'd never really appreciated, I'd heard about how you could soak nuts and how you could sprout lentils and sunflowers, and oats was not one that I'd heard about readily, about raw oats. I found those to be very important. I really enjoy those as well. They're nothing like normal oats, is my experience. Normal oats
So,
make me ill.
so your sprouted food consists of sprouted peanuts, sprouted raw naked oats,
Yep.
sprouted sunflower seeds, you mentioned one.
Yes. Yes.
What else?
Lentils.
Lentils.
And also, this might surprise a lot of people as well. And I'm not saying I recommend it to anyone because this is very unorthodox. Raw sprouted brown rice.
Okay.
I get on well
I've
with
seen
that
some
as well.
dishes with that. Yeah. So just to kind of like my conclusions based or analyzing your diet or that this transition, this phase, you realize that you could substitute what your body was actually craving because you were subjecting your body to this stressful training.
Right.
CrossFit is very intense. What your body was really craving. With each workout, you're breaking down protein. I need to synthesize and repair the protein. Therefore, you're having your chicken cravings, but your body was actually needing the nutrition, right? Like macronutrition, like proteins and probably some fat. Chicken breast is not exempt of fat. So once you discover this brand of raw vegan protein powder, consistently taking it 50 to 100 grams per day for almost 5 years, that was a game changer. And then the incorporation of sprouted foods, which the ones that we mentioned are high in protein, you're not going to get the 30 to 40 or 50 grams that 2 scoops give you of the protein powder. But if you eat like a considerable big bowl of sprouted peanuts and rice and all of that, you're gonna get probably 20 grams or 15 grams or so some of those numbers. So based on your age, or the intensity of your workouts, the weight you have and the weight and the volume you want to achieve, you're definitely seeing enormous changes, progress, but it's because you're increasing we cannot isolate what you were experiencing before and saying, oh, it's all mental. It's just simple mathematics. And that's something that I really want people to realize. Like when you have fitness goals of this level, like you were telling me some numbers about that, you were novice before and now you are good, but there are more hierarchies, like very good and elite athlete, right? So you're actually transitioning, and this progress is because you're working out efficiently and you're giving your body what it needs. So protein powder, 50 to 100 grams, plus all these sprouted foods are giving you more protein. So we're talking about going beyond the dietary recommendations for just normal people. And this is the point that I want to emphasize, that dietary recommendations, 0.8 grams per kilo of body weight, is just to live a peaceful life, not really training for CrossFit or the Olympics. It's just living a life without suffering deficiency. So my point is that train and eat based on your athletic goals, not because somebody tells you like, oh no, you don't need this or you don't need that. It's quite dangerous. And that's why I'm so adamant, to say this, because I find it like it can be detrimental. I experience it on myself. When you break down muscle, other organs that also need protein, because it's not only muscle. Also, people need to consider that we are made of protein, basically, structurally. Tendons, bones, ligaments, hair, nails, muscles,
Joints,
of course, are made of
joints,
protein. So
really important thing, the joints.
yeah, the joints.
Yeah.
So elasticity of the skin, the collagen is protein. So don't let me start on that, but you're gonna suffer the consequences if you don't supplement and if you are working out to build muscle. So
Yeah.
I'm happy. You also mentioned one private conversation that your skin in your hands,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, skin on the hands and the feet, and also around the temple,
Okay.
um, and sometimes around the cheeks and the lips. If I do not keep, um, if I try and eat just fruit and just greens, my skin starts to suffer. I start to get bad skin, especially if I'm training hard. And when with the CrossFit, you're kind of holding on to bars a lot,
Yes.
whether it's the weight bar or whether it's the kind of bar, and so you get kind of you get skin, you get some hard skin around
Calluses,
here,
right? Yeah.
calluses, yeah, yeah. But basically, if my diet's good, the skin regenerates
Yes.
or during the week. It heals and it regenerates, and so there's two main places you can get dry skin. It's here
Yeah.
or it's here on the tips.
Right.
And if I'm not eating as comprehensively, so the protein and or the sprouts, the skin doesn't regenerate,
Yeah.
and it just keeps getting worse. And
Yeah.
then it actually starts to crack and bleed and go dry. And then I have to start using loads of hand cream
Mm.
and sometimes putting like a dressing or something on it. And of course, by that stage, you can't help but think, what is the missing factor here?
Yeah.
What is the thing which I'm not doing? Because that when I've found that when I eat more protein and when I eat more sprouted foods, my body regenerates very readily. It recovers, it regenerates, and the skin is an issue. Joints are another massive issue. That's a huge issue because if you're doing serious training, intense training, those are actually the main things that suffer outside, but even more than the muscle group, I would say. And if you're not eating properly, when you've trained really intensely, you will be so tight for like 2, 3, 4 days after, and you don't feel like doing anything,
Yeah.
especially around the shoulders and the hips. If you've done a lot of leg exercises, squat, your hips will feel really tight, and the muscle down the side of your leg will feel really tight. And the same with the shoulders. You won't want to do anything because you feel so tight and so painful. But the fact is, when I eat fully protein, sprouts, in addition to fruit, I eat lots of fruit. Well, I've told you that my ratio of fruit actually goes up and down. Sometimes I feel like eating more, sometimes I feel like eating less. And that can really wildly flex. So at the moment, I'm having about 20, 30 pieces of fruit a day just because I feel like it. But as you know, because I think I've mentioned it to you in the past, my fruit consumption can drop to 1 or 2 pieces of fruit a day. Because sometimes my body just says to me, I don't feel like having as much fruit at the moment.
Yeah, and I just want to make a parenthesis here. It seems like people are, oh, but your carbs, you're under carb and all. No, I mean, the sprouts that you're eating are mostly carbohydrates.
Yeah, 100%.
Raw is just a different version of raw carbohydrates, but sprouted
100%.
rice is mostly carbohydrates. Obviously, out of 200 grams, 300 grams, you're getting 15 or 20 grams of protein, but most of it is carbohydrates. So when I hear these comments, I can just see where people are coming from. No offense or anything, but probably you need to understand a little bit of nutrition science. It's not like we're super powerful for being raw vegan. We're definitely getting a big advantage just because it's amazing. It makes you feel alive. Gives hydration and all of that. And that's why we prefer. And as we were discussing before the video, we are not trying to come here like we know all. We have
the opposite. The opposite.
we are basically coming inquirer mindset, right?
Yeah. And also, I think very importantly, to discuss our very real experiences.
Our experiences. Yes.
And speaking of experiences, can we talk about the change in the protein factor?
Yes. So you mentioned that you were 5 years consistent with that.
Yeah.
What happened?
Yeah. So basically, as you kind of know, but let's talk about it because people might be interested to hear this. So I have had been rigorously doing this protein powder for years. And then this year, I had a fairly serious bout of illness. I mean, it may or may not have been COVID, whatever it was, in June. In the earlier part of this year, I'd actually probably made the most substantial gains in terms of power and muscle than I ever had done. And that was, I was taking protein supplementation. I started getting very strong in the gym. My body really started to build, and I could really see the difference and feel the difference. And I communicated that to you. And actually, if you look at my videos around about that time on Instagram, about April, some of the weights I was lifting were really big for me. I mean, I know that, for example, I was squatting about 130, 140 kilograms. I was deadlifting 180 kilograms, and I was cleaning 95 kilograms. So I was cleaning from the floor to my chest. I was lifting from the floor to my chest in that motion, nearly 100 kilograms. For me, that was bigger than I'd ever lifted. And my body was definitely getting bigger, and I was getting more powerful. I could feel it. And that was from that diet. But in, I think it was May or June, I became very ill. I had a really horrible bout of illness where the main thing which I struggled with in that illness was inflammation, and specifically my head. It was the head fog and the inflammation that I had in my head was so painful that, again, I really asked myself the question. It was on one particular evening, and I thought, am I going to have to go to hospital here? Because I couldn't stop it. It was so painful. And I took some painkiller, and I got this towel and I put it in cold water and I wrapped it around my head. And that actually meant that I could sleep, thankfully. And the following day, thankfully, it had abated. It had got much better, thankfully. But it was so painful. And I came out of that period of illness, and basically my body said to me, stop the protein. Just like said, stop the protein. I never expected that, but it went, I don't want any protein. So I was like, okay. And I think I said to you at the time, hey, Ariely, I'm going to try stopping the protein, and I would never have done that before, because I wouldn't have wanted to start eating chicken again. But of course, this year I'm in a different place, because that time I wasn't eating peanuts and lentils and sunflowers and, so I'm in a different place right now. And I'm asking myself the question, because my body is saying to me, I don't want this protein. I'm asking myself the question, well, one, why is my body saying I don't want this protein anymore? And two, is it possible for me to stop the protein? So I'm sort of in no man's land again. I'm a little bit blind. I don't know if this new territory for me. I've been doing this protein for 5.5 years, and suddenly,
you mean the supplementation with the powder, right? Like
the supplementation with the powder. I've been doing
while keeping the sprouts who has protein. Yeah,
and now suddenly my body is going, like, literally telling me stop. So anyway, I stopped, and I said that I think I told you at the time. I messaged you. I said I'm going to try stopping protein, and I think I said to you, but I liked what I said, because I said, I don't know if this is going to work.
Yes.
I need to give this 6 months.
Right.
But at that point in time, and I think I told you about this as well, something that I didn't know I even had, a load of head fog that I didn't even know I had, and I didn't even know I had it. And the energy levels and the clarity and the feeling was even better. And then I realized that it had actually been causing some inflammation, which I hadn't noticed. And I said that to you. I said, hey, I think this was causing me inflammation. And you said, yeah, it was causing me inflammation too. Didn't you?
Because when I came to this not bodybuilding, but actually recomposing my body, and I'm going to discuss it in my future videos, or before I discuss it. So it's I didn't want to experiment with this protein powder, because it's not raw, it's processed, it's powder, but then I realized, when I was having issues with my hair and with my skin and with my nails, I was like, if I'm breaking down with every single workout, muscle fibers, my body is wise, and all the protein that I ingest it's going to go to repair those broken pieces, right? So now it's like, okay, that forced me to, actually look into the science of protein. And that's why I'm like, why you're just talking about protein, you're no longer fruit-based or raw vegan. No, it's just highlighting the importance of this macronutrient, because if you're serious about training, you may need it. Other organs may be compromised. So I started incorporating the sun. I almost mentioned the brand, but yes, the brand,
The protein.
the protein powder that is supposed to be vegan. The first month, I didn't suffer anything, but as you said, eventually I developed the so-called brain fog. Like I was not thinking, I don't like that feeling. So after that, we discussed this between ourselves, and we said, definitely this causes something in our brain. This causes it, whether is that is cooked or that the powders or the preservatives, whatever it is, there's something not good about it. And so you experience that, I experienced that. And then you went off 6 months. What happened with your training?
Yeah, so I mean, this is really up to date because the report on this is very recent, really, because I tried not having protein for 6 months, and during that time, what I had hoped that I would be able to come out of that period of illness, recover, and then afterwards start making the slope of improvement go up again. It didn't happen. So clearly, because I'd been a bit ill for a few weeks and I needed to recover, then I found out that actually this protein is probably maybe not such a good idea. And so I thought, okay, maybe I can stop the protein now because I've got the sprouts, so I stopped it. But what I didn't want to do, I didn't want to stop improvements in athleticism and in my improvements in the gym, my improvements with my body. I didn't want to compromise the ability of my body to heal. So I was paying very close attention to my skin, to my hair, to my joints, to looking for the signs of, is there going to be a problem here? And everything seemed to be okay, but I wasn't making any improvement. Definitely not. In fact, my performance in general dropped a bit. I was not massively, but it dropped a bit over the 6 months.
Can I ask you, for example, when you said you were 5 years with the regime, supplementing, you squatted 180, right?
Deadlift 180. I deadlifted 180. Yeah, I was squatting about 130 kilograms.
Oh, okay. So those numbers, if you compare it at your peak with the supplementation, now without it, after 6 months, did it went down or stayed the same?
So I can give you some top level numbers. My clean went from 95 kilograms to 85 kilograms. Okay. My squat actually stayed about the same, interestingly enough. So my squat stayed at about 130 still, 120, 130, but my deadlift dropped from 180 to 160. Ooh. So that's quite a percentage change. And, I noticed a drop across most areas, actually, except for maybe body weight exercises. Body weight exercises I actually improved a bit in, but to be honest, I'm not surprised because I think I lost weight, basically.
So now you're reintroducing another version of protein powder, and you've been doing it for 3 weeks. And what is your experience?
Yes.
In a short time, but
because I came to the conclusion after the 6 months that it wasn't. I think it was only the 6 months only was not wasted because I realized that actually I need protein powder. I do for what I'm trying to do. I can't not have. So I tried. I've tried another protein powder, which which one it is. We'll just leave it in suspension for now. But I'm trying another one, and it's not giving me inflammation. Thankfully, it doesn't seem to be causing any problems. I think it is more authentically raw because the particular brand of protein powder that it doesn't need to be processed. So it seems to be a lot better. I'm paying close attention to everything, but I've only been doing it for 2-3 weeks, and my muscle mass has increased already a lot. If I could put a percentage on it, it's got to be at least 5%. I'm bigger. I've got a lot bigger already. My arms have increased in size. I think I said that to you earlier on. It's not like I've turned into the Incredible Hulk in the last 2 to 3 weeks, but I've got noticeably bigger. Do you know what I mean? And I've got heavier. I've definitely put weight back on, but I'm also feeling much stronger. I'm feeling more solid. I'm feeling stronger. I'm feeling more solid. I'm feeling more confident in relation to the training. I'm feeling more powerful. And that feeling is very similar to what I had at the beginning of this year when I was when I was really doing, the big,
Yeah.
because I could.
Yeah.
The thing is, when you're going to hit a big weight, because even before you pick up the weight, you feel powerful. So
Mm.
you've got that confidence,
Yeah.
and then you go and pick it up, and then then you hit those numbers. And I've got that feeling back, and I've been missing that feeling. I've been okay, don't get me wrong. I haven't been weak or not able to move, kind of thing. I've been able to do good workouts, but now I'm feeling a lot stronger. I'm feeling more powerful. My muscles are growing more. Um, yeah, so my conclusion in brief after the last 6 months is that just because your vegan protein, if you're trying to train hard, if your vegan protein powder is not working for you, change it. But don't, that's my conclusion. And
Yeah.
I wouldn't, I feel, and this is the only reason why I feel I haven't wasted the last 6 months, because ideally I would have liked to be gaining for the last 6 months. But what I feel I've gained is that it is knowledge, basically. That trying to do what I'm doing, don't try and do it without a protein powder. That's my conclusion.
Yeah, I mean, and that's why I emphasize a lot that we need to go beyond what is recommended, just because we are doing something that is beyond what most people do. It just
Yeah,
makes total sense. It's just mathematics, based on what you're saying. And I like to track things. So based on your weight, based on your height, based on the muscle mass that you want to accomplish and all of that, it seems to me that when you went off the supplemented protein powder, you basically rely on the protein that is actually higher in numbers that what fruit only can give you. It was enough just to keep up like a maintenance level, but not progressing. And now with the additional, I'm going to just mention the name, not the brand, but hemp protein powder.
yeah, it's hemp.
It seems like you're hitting the macro targets when it comes to protein
100%.
numbers, because of
100%.
you're a man, you're tall, you're big, and you're
Yeah,
aiming to get bigger. So it just
yeah,
makes
yeah,
more sense. So just to
yeah,
finalize, we're not saying that men cannot get muscle or women cannot get muscle. It's just the type of training that
yeah,
Garth is trying to accomplish, the type
yeah,
of training that I'm trying to do, and also the age that I am. We are in our 40-year decade of
yeah,
life.
yeah, yeah,
It's more difficult. It's not like you're 20, and you can just run and cycle forever. It's not
yeah,
right anymore. So yeah, you have to pay attention on a lot of other factors. And yeah, if you want to eat fruit and you want to eat, if you want to eat, if you want to live a happy, healthy, peaceful, stress-free life in a tropical island, probably supplementing with protein powder and doing CrossFit is not going to work for you. But if you live in an environment like we do on a 9 to 5, in addition to our training, and in this world that is becoming more complicated, maybe, we're talking about the hump that you need if you want to end up with that.
oomph, oomph.
Um,
Yeah,
um,
yeah, oomph.
like,
Yeah, oomph.
how do you
Yeah,
say
yeah.
it?
I call it oomph. I think I don't think I'm necessarily the originator of that, but it's that word for me
Like,
expresses the,
kick. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's not just in the gym. It's a very tough world at the moment. And if you work full time, it's tough. We're all facing a lot more insecurity now. To actually be in a job, to find yourself in a job, you're in much higher competition with other people. It's a very competitive, stressful world. And I'm sorry, I don't live in a world, and this is not saying anything against those parts of the raw vegan community that do. I do not live on a tropical beach, relaxing every day. That's not my life. My life.
And let alone, I mean, we don't have children, right? Like you're not
Yeah,
married. So
yeah.
it's just like on top of that, there are people who have to provide for their
And
families.
I don't know how they do it, to be honest. I
Yeah.
mean, the people that have got children at the moment, I think it must be immensely stressful for them because it's so tough out there. But you need every day. I find that I need energy, but what I call tough energy. it's not a gentle energy, it's tough energy, because it's a tough world. So you need, and it's actually very similar to that energy, which means that you can really grab a heavy weight and move it,
Yeah, I feel that way. Yeah.
or you can sprint, or sprint or do intense workout. It's that same energy, it's the oomph. And I don't get that just from having the fruit. I need the protein powder, I need what you call the macros, and then it works for me. I have this oomph, I can approach this world successfully, I can tackle it, I can face the challenges. It helps me a lot.
And people who train, they always say, like, when you train, you are not only training your body, but also your mindset for the environment that we're currently living in. And I will wish that everybody had the accessibility to live in a tropical island. Ideally, that will be our normal environment. I don't disagree with that, but there are different strategies, there are different fitness goals, there are different targets that we need to hit. And
well, the thing is, if you look at humanity, the humanity largely has been a history of wars, of stress, of struggle, unfortunately. And you don't have to read much history to know that people from all ages have had a rough, tough time of it generally. I mean, if you can do the tropical island thing, fine. For me, I feel that if I can have something that a way of living, a way of being that really helps me face that world, and not just kind of almost not just almost be able to deal with it, but almost move beyond it.
Yeah,
because I can do that. I can do the job and I can do the deal with the world thing, but then I've got plenty of energy afterwards to do my stuff, to create, to exercise, to engineer things, to do music, to do art, to do all these different things. I'm not dead at the end of the day. Do you know what I mean?
We need strength, definitely. Garth, it's gonna end now.
Right. Okay.
But maybe we need another third part. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for watching. Hit the like button, subscribe, and share this video if you find it useful. Thank you, Garth, and see you in the next one.
Thank you, Arlie. See you soon. Bye bye.